Welcome to World's Most Thrilling Cases. Today, we are opening the file on one of the most terrifying, arrogant, and patient serial killers in American history. This is the story of a man who lived a perfect double life. To the outside world, he was a devoted husband, a father of two, a Cub Scout leader, and the respected president of his church council. He was the friendly neighbor who installed home security systems for a living. But beneath that utterly ordinary facade lurked a monster who gave himself a chilling nickname, BTK. Bind, torture, kill. For 3 decades, he held the city of Wichita, Kansas, in a grip of absolute terror. He murdered 10 innocent people, stalked countless others, and taunted the police with letters, poems, and twisted puzzles. He was a phantom who seemed impossible to catch, vanishing for years at a time only to strike again when the city least expected it. But his own monumental ego and a desperate need for attention would eventually be his undoing, leading to one of the most shocking and ironic arrests in true crime history. Before we delve into the dark mind of Dennis Rader, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is what allows us to keep bringing you these thrilling deep dives. Now, let us uncover the horrifying truth behind the BTK killer. The nightmare began on a freezing Tuesday morning. It was January 15, 1974. The Otero family lived in a modest home in Wichita. Joseph Otero, 38, and his wife Julia, 33, had 5 children. On this particular morning, the 3 oldest children had already left for school. Only Joseph, Julia, 9-year-old Joey, and 11-year-old Josephine remained in the house. They had no idea that a predator had been watching them. For weeks, a man had been stalking the family, learning their routines, memorizing their schedules. He had spotted Julia dropping the kids off at school and decided they would be his first project. That morning, he parked his car a few blocks away, walked to the Otero home, scaled the backyard fence, and methodically cut the telephone lines. When young Joey opened the back door to let the family dog out, the stranger pounced. He forced his way inside at gunpoint, wielding a .22 caliber pistol loaded with hollow point bullets. At first, the family thought it was a sick joke. The intruder quickly assured them it was not. He claimed he was a wanted man on the run from California, that he needed food, money, and a car, and that if they cooperated, no one would be hurt. He ordered the terrified family into a bedroom and forced them to lie on the floor, pulling pre-cut lengths of rope from his jacket. He methodically bound Joseph, Julia, Joey, and Josephine. But this was never a robbery. Once the family was completely helpless, the intruder's true sadistic nature emerged. He placed a plastic bag over Joseph's head and secured it with rope. When Joseph managed to chew a hole in the plastic to breathe, the killer calmly replaced it with another, watching as the father slowly suffocated to death. He then turned to Julia, strangling her with a piece of rope. At one point, Julia regained consciousness and desperately pleaded for the lives of her children. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. He tightened the rope until she was dead. The horror only escalated. The killer placed a plastic bag, followed by 2 T-shirts, and then another bag over 9-year-old Joey's head. He then pulled up a chair and sat down, casually, watching the little boy struggle and suffocate. Finally, he took 11-year-old Josephine down to the basement. He tied a noose around a sewage pipe. Josephine, trembling, asked him what was going to happen to her. The killer looked at the little girl and replied, "Well, honey, you're going to be in heaven with the rest of your family." He then hanged her from the pipe. Hours later, the 3 older Otero children returned from school to find their home transformed into a slaughterhouse. The police arrived to a scene of unimaginable cruelty. There was no forced entry, no obvious motive, and very little physical evidence. The city of Wichita was plunged into a state of panic. People began locking their doors, buying guns, and installing Security systems. Ironically, the man who had just slaughtered the Otero family was employed by ADT Security Services. He spent his days installing the very alarms that terrified citizens were buying to protect themselves from him. If the sheer brutality of the Otero family murders sends chills down your spine, please hit that like button right now, and make sure you are subscribed to World's Most Thrilling Cases, so you don't miss a single detail of this twisted story. 3 months later, on April 4, 1974, the killer struck again. His target was 21-year-old Catherine Bright. He had spotted her entering her home and dubbed her Project Lights Out. He broke in through a rear glass door and waited. When Catherine arrived, she was not alone. Her 19-year-old brother, Kevin, was with her. The intruder used the same lie he had told the Oteros, claiming he was a fugitive needing money and a car. He forced Kevin to tie up Catherine, then bound Kevin himself. He separated the siblings, taking Kevin into another room to strangle him. But Kevin fought back. He managed to free his hands and lunged at the attacker. A violent struggle ensued, during which the killer shot Kevin 3 times in the face and head. Believing he was dead, the killer left the room. Miraculously, Kevin survived by playing dead and eventually managed to escape the house to get help. Meanwhile, the killer returned to Catherine. She had heard the gunshots and fought back with everything she had. Her fierce resistance prevented him from strangling her, so he drew a knife and stabbed her repeatedly in the abdomen. He fled the scene just before the police arrived. Catherine was still alive, clutching a telephone, but she died in emergency surgery. The killer had failed to silence his only witness, Kevin Bright, but Kevin's description of a man with a mustache and a dark jacket was not enough to identify him. In October 1974, the killer decided it was time to claim his terrifying work. He left a letter inside a public library book, directing a local newspaper to find it. The letter took full responsibility for the Otero murders, providing details only the killer could know. He wrote, "I did it by myself and no one's help," but it was the chilling signature that would forever define him. He suggested several names for himself, but the one that stuck was the one he used to sign off, BTK. Bind them, torture them, kill them. The BTK killer had officially announced his presence, and he was hungry for the spotlight. Are you shocked by his desperate need for attention? Leave a comment below and let us know. What do you think drives a killer to taunt the police? And don't forget to share this video with your fellow true crime fans. BTK's reign of terror continued. In March 1977, he targeted a 26-year-old mother named Shirley Vian Relford. He hadn't even planned to kill her that day. His original target wasn't home. So he found Shirley by following her 5-year-old son as the boy walked home with soup for his sick mother. He forced his way inside, locked Shirley's 3 young children in a bathroom with some toys, and barricaded the door. He then took Shirley to a bedroom, tied her to the bed, placed a plastic bag over her head, and strangled her with a rope. He later confessed that he had fully intended to murder the 3 children in the bathroom as well. But the telephone rang, spooking him and causing him to flee. In December of that same year, he broke into the apartment of 25-year-old Nancy Jo Fox. He cut her phone lines, waited for her to return from work, and strangled her with his own belt. He was so arrogant that the very next morning, he called the police from a public phone booth to report the murder himself, giving them the exact address where they could find her body. He continued to bombard the media and the police with communications. He sent a poem titled Shirley Locks, detailing Shirley Relford's murder. He sent a letter to a local television station demanding more press coverage, asking, "How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?" He claimed he was driven by a supernatural force he called Factor X, the same dark entity he believed had possessed Jack the Ripper and the son of Sam. In 1979, he broke into the home of a 63-year-old woman named Anna Williams. He waited for hours in the dark, But she had stayed out late visiting friends, impatient and furious. He eventually left. Months later, he mailed her a poem titled, "Oh Anna, why didn't you appear?" along with items he had stolen from her house. It was a terrifying reminder that BTK could be anywhere, watching anyone. And then, just as suddenly as the letters and the murders had begun, they stopped. BTK went completely silent. For the next 25 years, the BTK case became one of the most frustrating and infamous cold cases in American history. The police had thousands of suspects, but every lead hit a dead end. The task forces dwindled. Many investigators assumed the killer had died, been imprisoned for another crime, or had simply moved away. But Dennis Rader had not moved away. He was living right there in the Wichita suburbs, hiding in plain sight. He was raising 2 children with his wife. He was an active member of his church, eventually becoming the president of the church council. He was a Cub Scout leader, taking young boys on camping trips. And from 1991 to 2005, he worked as a compliance officer and dog catcher for the city of Park City, Kansas. He was known as a strict, sometimes overzealous, rule enforcer who took pleasure in measuring his neighbor's grass and bullying single women over minor code violations. He seemed like an ordinary, if somewhat annoying, suburban dad, but the monster inside him was never truly asleep. During his long public silence, he was still hunting. If the idea of a serial killer hiding as a Cub Scout leader and church president terrifies you, hit that subscribe button right now. You will not believe how his massive ego finally brought him down. The horrifying truth was that BTK had not stopped killing. In April 1985, he targeted his own neighbor, 53-year-old Maureen Hedge. He called her Project Cookie. He faked a headache to leave a Cub Scouts outing early, changed out of his uniform, and drove to a bowling alley to splash beer on himself to appear drunk. He then broke into Maureen's home and hid in a closet until her boyfriend left. Once she was alone and asleep, he crept out, flipped on the light, and strangled her bare-handed. But the most chilling part of Maureen Hedges' murder was what he did next. He dragged her body out to her car and drove to his own church, Christ Lutheran Church, where he had a set of keys. He brought her body inside, covered the windows with garbage bags, and spent hours taking photographs of her corpse in sexually graphic positions. As dawn approached, he cleaned up, returned her body to the trunk, and dumped her in a remote ditch. In September 1986, he struck again, targeting 28-year-old Vicky Wagerly, whom he called Project Piano. He used an ADT hard hat to pose as a telephone technician. Once inside her home, he pulled a gun and strangled her with a nylon stocking. Vicky fought back fiercely, scratching his face so deeply that the marks were still visible 20 years later when he confessed. He casually passed her husband on his way out, driving Vicky's stolen car. His final known victim was 62-year-old Dolores Davis in January 1991. He called her Project Dogside. He left another scout outing, smashed a cinder block through her sliding glass door, and strangled her with pantyhose while she begged for her life. He dumped her body under a bridge, ensuring he made it back to the scout camp before anyone noticed he was gone. For the next 13 years, BTK lived quietly. The murders stopped. The letters stopped. The city of Wichita slowly began to forget the terror. In 2004, the 30th anniversary of the Otero family murders approached. A local newspaper, the Wichita Eagle, published an article titled, "BTK Case Unsolved." 30 years later, Dennis Rader saw the article. In his own words, he was kind of bored. His massive ego could not stand the thought that people might forget him or think he was dead. He decided it was time to resurrect BTK. On March 19, 2004, the Wichita Eagle received a letter from someone claiming to be BTK. To prove it, the sender included photographs of Vicky Wagerly's crime scene and a photocopy of her stolen driver's license. The city was thrown back into a state of panic. BTK was back. Over the next 11 months, Rader engaged in a bizarre and desperate game of cat and mouse with the police. He sent packages containing dolls bound in plastic bags, word puzzles, and fake IDs. He left a cereal box in the bed of a pickup truck at a Home Depot. He mailed a manila envelope with a poem threatening the lead investigator. He was planning to kill again, setting a target date for October 2004, and actively stalking his intended victim. But Rader's arrogance was matched only by his technological ignorance. In one of his letters, he asked the police a seemingly innocent question: "Can I communicate with a floppy disk and not be traced to a computer?" He instructed them to answer him via a classified ad in the newspaper. The police, sensing an incredible opportunity, placed an ad that read, "Rex, it will be okay." It was a massive, brilliant lie. On February 16, 2005, a purple Memorex floppy disk arrived at a local television station. The police immediately analyzed it. They discovered that a Microsoft Word document had been deleted from the disk, but the metadata was still embedded in the file. The metadata revealed that the document was a church meeting agenda. It had been created on a computer registered to Christ Lutheran Church, and it was last modified by a user named Dennis. A quick internet search revealed that the president of the church council at Christ Lutheran Church was a man named Dennis Rader. The police drove past Rader's home in Park City and spotted a black Jeep Cherokee in the driveway, perfectly matching the vehicle seen on surveillance footage dropping off the cereal box at Home Depot. It was the break of a lifetime, but they needed hard evidence. They obtained a warrant for a pap smear taken from Rader's daughter at her university medical clinic. They compared the DNA from the pap smear to DNA found under Vicky Wagerly's fingernails. It was a familial match. The killer was closely related to Dennis Rader's daughter. The monster was finally unmasked. On February 25, 2005, shortly after noon, police surrounded Rader's vehicle as he was driving near his home. An officer approached the window and asked, "Mr. Rader, do you know why you're going downtown?" Rader, ever the narcissist, replied, "Oh, I have suspicions why." The arrest sent shockwaves around the world. The BTK killer was not a brilliant criminal mastermind. He was a mundane, annoying city employee who had hidden behind a facade of extreme normalcy for 30 years. During his interrogation, he casually asked if he could get the death penalty, and he requested that the officers label his water cup with BTK instead of his own name. On June 27, 2005, Dennis Rader pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. In a chilling, emotionless display, he described his horrific crimes to the court in agonizing detail. Referring to his victims as projects, he offered no apologies. At his sentencing, he delivered a rambling, 30-minute monologue that the prosecutor likened to an Academy Awards acceptance speech, completely devoid of empathy or remorse. He was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences, with a minimum of 175 years in prison. He was sent to the El Dorado Correctional Facility, where he remains in solitary confinement to this day. The man who thrived on attention and terror is now locked away in a small cell, forgotten by the world he tried so desperately to control. The story of the BTK killer is a terrifying reminder that monsters do not always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes, they are the people living right next door. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chilling case of Dennis Rader. If you found this video compelling, please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. What do you think is the most shocking part of this case? And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to World's Most Thrilling Cases and turn on the notification bell so